Okay, should we get started with this little webinar? Does that make sense? Give me a thumbs up, Chase, if you, Chase, can hear us at all.
It was me. Have you made Keith a co-host so he can
we've done that.
this? Cool.
Keith's on it. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Well, it's a miracle that we're here with time confusions and sound problems, but it's good to see so many of you there in an Australian evening. I was trying to work out this morning. It's been 20 years since I was working in Australia, and
you need to come back.
Probably, yeah. Maybe not right at the moment. I'm not sure you let me in, but down and actually I came down to Victoria and did a workshop and stuff like that. So quite familiar with the area, which is good. I did a little poll here for you just to give me an idea. Anybody can see that, just so I've got a bit of idea of how many donkeys and what you've got. That would be cool. And if you have any particular questions that you would like answered, especially at the end, you can ask questions as we go through, but if there's anything particular that you want to ask and you really like an answer to, that would be great. Stick it in the chat box and I'll make sure we get to that during the process. Oh, we got some big numbers. Good. Okay. So yeah, use the chat box, or if you want to stick your hand up or ask a question. Anyway, just look completely confused as we go through. That will be fine. I'll try and pick up on that as we're doing it.
Yes.
Good. We got. Oh, pleased to see everyone's got just one donkey. 5 donkeys and 5 mules. About to get a 6th 2-year-old donkey. Wow, you're either very brave or crazy, Fiona. No, fantastic. We love it. Just keep them in the meeting. Good. Okay, we just got a couple more people I've got joining here that I'll just let get started. And we'll crack on. So for those of you who haven't had the pleasure of meeting or working with briefly, I've spent 20 years working with equine behaviour and specifically the science of behaviour and the application of that to horses, donkeys and mules. I've also worked with the Donkey Sanctuary for that same amount of time being their behaviourist. So I've had thousands of donkeys to work with and to practice on. We have the Donkey Sanctuary has a farm with mules, about 150 mules on there. So lots and lots of opportunity to work with donkeys and mules around the world, working equids in Africa and South America, North America. As I said, I've been lucky enough to work a little bit in Australia, Cambodia. So I've been all over with various different types of equines. And everything I do is about the science of behavior. It's about applying that and matching not only donkey behavior, horse and mule behavior, but also the behavior of humans. And that's what I want to blend for you this evening. And we kind of base this around 3 questions about what methods work best for donkeys and hybrids. How can I assess to see if my training method is working, and what I do if I lose my way during training. I think those are all pretty valid questions, and anybody who's been around equines, especially donkeys, for any length of time is going to have encountered those at some point. So it's a great opportunity, really. And all I'm going to do is just take one at a time, just go through them. You're all experienced donkey, mule owners, so you can tick off the ones that you're already kind of doing and thinking about, and maybe add in any others. I think there are, let's start with the methods and what methods work best for donkeys and hybrids. And I think this works for horses too. You know, I always say, there's an old saying that says, you can tell a horse what to do. You ask a donkey and you negotiate with a mule. And all of my training is at the mule standard. So there isn't a different way of training mules if you're using the science of behavior. It's about training to that level where you can work with mules and you can then apply that to donkeys and you can apply it to horses. So I think what often goes wrong is we take horses and horse training as the gold standard and then try and apply that to donkeys and mules. And my experience tells me that's the wrong way around. What we should be doing is saying, okay, how do we work with a donkey? How do we work with a mule? And then it makes it easier to work with a horse. So we're going back the other way. And that's really kind of an important aspect, because when I talk about what methods work best for horses, for donkeys and mules, not ones for horses. I think it's very easy for donkey owners to receive information from horse owners and look at horse training methods and try and apply those directly. Because of the flight nature of the horse, you can take away their flight mechanism, with that being a pen or a rope or a head collar, and you can get them to comply. I'm not saying you should do it that way, but that's kind of what happens. But if you apply that to a donkey, the donkeys, because of their increased fight mechanism, is very likely to say, yeah, come on then, bring it on. And you've probably all experienced that. So the thought process for me is, what the first rule I have is, don't look at horse training methods and say, can I apply that to donkeys? Not in general, or not in the entirety. There are obviously always bits you can take and learn from, but so really important to have that. I think training methods that take into account the animal's true nature and their individual character. Now that's the challenging thing again that ties in with not the horse methods, because donkeys, as you all know, are different, and horse training methods don't tend to take that into account, that donkeys require this stoic body language, that they have a higher tolerance to pain that they don't show, their fear response is much more muted, and the flight distance is reduced. And so people often, equine horse owners, horse trainers will often miss the signals that you will all know, that donkeys are nervous, fearful, apprehensive about situations, and hence the label that comes up about stubbornness. That's just people not understanding the true nature of donkeys and mules. And once you understand that, then you can understand where that label incorrectly comes from. So you want a method that takes into account what's your animal's individual learning style. Now, many of you in the poll there said you'd got more than 2 to 4, 5, 10 donkeys, more than 10. And what that means is you're working with 10 different learning styles. So when I talk about learning styles, what I'm talking about is the way that some animals will be like, no, I can't, no, I can't, no, I can't, no, I can't, or maybe. Others are like, no, I can't, no, I can't, oh, go on, I'll try. Others are like, yeah, I'll do that. Oh, I wish I hadn't. And you have to match your training to the nature of your individual animal. So how quickly you expose them to things, how slowly you expose them to things, how much time you give them to think. And you have to make that for the individual, just the same as all of us would learn slightly differently. So equines learn differently. So a method that fits all sizes and you just apply, this is what you do, is not taking into account the true nature of each individual animal and making it adaptable for that animal. Then you want a method that's based on science. It's really interesting that in many areas of our life, you wouldn't go to a doctor that, I've got 20 years experience. I've got no qualifications, but I've got 20 years experience. So yeah, do come into my surgery and I'll do some operations on you. And what we need to move away from in the equine world is from just purely experience, but also to qualifications and science-based knowledge that allows people to correctly apply learning theory. So when you're looking at a method, you want something that actually is based on science. It's probably less attractive. It doesn't make a great demonstration. It's not showy. It doesn't happen instantly, but it's scientifically proven to do the right things for your animal, and you will be able to know what is actually happening. So many videos online, the trainer will be talking about one thing, but when you look at it scientifically, you go, oh, that was just punishment. They won't call it punishment. Not many people put punishment videos up, But if you know about the science and you watch, you'll see what's actually happening. And that's why I always encourage everybody to engage with learning a bit about the science of behavior, because then you can really tell if what you're being told is the right thing. You need a method that always asks about pain and environmental problems first. So if you have a problem with your donkey, whether it be kicking, whether it be not loading, whether it not leading, the first thing that should always be asked in any method is pain the reason this behavior is occurring? And secondly, could it be environmental? And only after you've completed those two questions should you do the training bit or consider the training bit. So often we jump straight into training, you ask for advice, people will tell you straight away what you do is this and what you do is that. Because of the science element, what we should always do is ask, are we sure that animal's not in pain? And that's not the cause. Go back to the stoic nature that you all know about. So often donkeys are in pain or discomfort and it gets missed. And we get on with training and we wonder why the behavior doesn't improve. So really important that you eliminate pain before you do anything else. And then environment causes a lot of stress. It can cause a lot of tension, anxiety. It can prevent the animal from fulfilling its normal behaviors. Donkeys get a lot better deal than horses often because, they'll be out with companions. They'll probably have a free range. They'll have lots of things. They're not often stable on their own at night on limited diet. So we don't see so many of those stereotypies or problems that are caused by that type of environment. But it's important that you make sure environment isn't the underlying cause that's making your donkey anxious or nervous, and that's contributing to the behavior. When you're looking at your methods, you definitely want one that is about taking small steps. So one of the things that the science tells us about shaping behavior, which is breaking a behavior down into very small steps. Now, everybody knows this, you all know this. You can't run before you can walk, you can't load your donkey before you can lead it, you can't pick up his feet before you can put a head collar on and stroke him. But it's the size of the steps that are really important. So lots of trainers, obviously break it down and methods break it down, but the science will really broken it down and have tiny steps. Let me give you an example. If you're teaching a donkey to pick up his feet and you're stroking the leg, you've got down to the hoof, you've done all the right things. Most people, the next step, the logical next step is to pick up the foot, even for a brief second, try and get the animal to pick up his foot. When we're shaping behavior correctly and the method is breaking down the behavior into small enough steps, the actual steps that we would probably be taking is, okay, we're touching the hoof and doing all those sorts of things. But then what we'll do is just get the animal to shift his weight onto the other 3 feet and then just pause. And that's a step. We can reward that. Maybe we'll get him to tip his foot onto the tip of his toes. So he's got his foot on the floor. You want him just to keep his foot on the floor, but just tip. So he's learning to take all his weight off the floor. That's 2 steps. We might just slide the foot around on the floor without taking it off. That's 3 steps. We might move it from left to right, just picking it up and putting it down. That's 4 steps before we might ask them to pick it up for 1 second, which is step number 5. So really good training and shaping is important in a method because I've put 5 steps in the place of 1. And what that will do will give you more opportunities to tell the animal he's done the right thing, make more smaller mistakes, and therefore you will create less fear in learning and more opportunities for that animal to actually be able to understand what you want. So whenever you've got a method, whatever you're doing, excuse me, make sure that it incorporates these really small steps. Any method that is really going to benefit donkeys and especially mules should be based around positive reinforcement. So you want to be able to tell the animal, yes, that's what I wanted. And this is the tricky one for most people because it's so easy for us to think of how we tell the animal, don't do this or don't do that. A lot of training methods are based around punishment, stopping behaviors, or the release of pressure, negative reinforcement, which is absolutely fine. That can be applied really nicely and be part of your training package. But we need to incorporate a way of telling the animal, yes, that's what I wanted, because that really motivates the animal and it also is much clearer to the animal. If I tell you, don't do this, don't kick, but that doesn't tell the animal what any of the other 10,000 things it could do, it should be doing. Whereas if I can say, keep your foot calmly on the ground, and I can reward that behavior, it's very clear for the animal what it is we want them to do. So rewards can be scratches. With the scratches, if you get in there, every donkey's got a scratchy spot. It could be the inside of the ears, whatever works for your donkey or mule. And food rewards. Food rewards are absolutely fine if they are used properly and correctly. Food rewards don't cause equines to bite. It's the timing of the food reward that is the problem. So donkeys that come up and learn to mug and do all this and forage on us, and we give them a piece of food because we love them and think they're gorgeous, that's what they learn to do. So if we just use food for the correct behaviors, and we use it for standing still and keeping their head off us and doing all the things we want. I've used food for 20 years and it has never been a problem. It's never resulted in a biting animal, but it has to be used correctly. But it's a very powerful motivator. Food, if you want to warm things up for leading, for doing really more active behaviors, is really good. But if you want to slow a behavior down, like standing still and being patient, then probably scratches are a more effective reward. But your method should be reflecting this. Ideally, I always advise people to have a written plan. How many of you, just a quick yes or no in the chat box, when you're training your donkeys, how many of you use a written plan? Yes or no? Everybody just shake your heads or nod if you don't want to type, but just give me some idea. Nah, absolutely. Most people do not use a written shaping plan. What they do is they get this, well, we're going to do this, I think I know what's going to happen. So my shaping plan for picking up feet has around 100 steps in it. And my argument is you can't keep 100 steps in your head and know which order they're in and where they're going and change and all that sort of thing. And it's normal. Across the equine community, most people don't have a written plan. The plan provides direction, it provides you with real consistency, allows gaps in training, it allows you to reward yourself for progress, it allows you to go back down the shaping plan and come back up again when there's an issue. I would strongly urge anybody who is training an equine of any description, whether that's a new behavior or undoing a behavior, to get a written plan so that you can break the behavior down. You get a lot of confidence. Now, some people say, yes, Ben, but I don't like a written plan because I need to be able to feel, and it doesn't, I don't want to take out that element of being able to just find my way and be sort of flexible with my donkey's training. It's not set in stone. A written plan isn't set in stone. It doesn't have to be a slave to it. But when you know what steps are coming, because you've looked at it and you can see, right, I'm on step 5 and I know what step 6, 7 and 8 are, you can go out with your donkey and you don't have to be worrying about step 27 or thinking, what about this or what about that? You can be in the moment, which is really important because you know exactly where you're going and what you're doing. So one tip I would always give people, top tip, get a written shaping plan in place when you're doing training. And I think the 2 final tips I'd talk about with the methods that work best for donkeys and hybrids are really about focus on your training that builds and puts the relationship first. So we so often with behavioral issues or trying to do training, we focus on the issue, we focus on the training, we focus on the behavior, and we try and get things fixed, or we try and get things learned. I would always say, look, start by working on the relationship. Have that donkey wanting to be with you, have that donkey enjoying the interaction, have that training that adds to your relationship, and then it will be so much easier to fix the problem or to bring in the training. So whatever you're doing should be adding to that relationship that you already have with that animal, or building it if that's necessary. The other thing, and the final thing, is this is the most important aspect, is whatever training you choose, it really needs to resonate with who you are and what you want your relationship to be with your donkeys. We often start out training and take a method and do things and then end up somewhere we maybe didn't want to be. I would argue the best way to be is to think about, what do I want my relationship to be with my donkey? How do I want them to behave? And then find a method that fits and will create that for you. So, so often I speak to owners across the world over the last 20 years when people have been told by trainers, right, you've got to be more dominant, you've got to be more confident, you've got to show them who's boss. And those people go, I'm not really that person. I'm not particularly strong person, or I'm you know 65 and I don't have all that strength. So what do? So find a method or training that resonates with your values and your principles, because that is the only way you're going to follow it. If you have something that conflicts and you're just doing it because a trainer tells you to, it's going to be really hard to keep that going. So just think about finding something that resonates with you. Those are all familiar to you? Yeah? Any questions? Anything else you want to add before we move on to the next one? Okay, no, we're all good. How can I assess to see if my training method is working? Now this in sort of on a very shallow level looks like it should be easy. Well, I'm seeing progress. If I'm not seeing progress, then obviously it's not working. However, the danger is that we see progress or success as a justification of the method that we're using. So you can get a lot of harsh methods that will be justified because they're seeing some progress. The animal's doing what they're doing. And you don't necessarily want that to be the case. So it's not quite as simple as if I'm seeing my animal's behavior improve, because you could see your animal's behavior improve in one area, but their behavior could be deteriorating in another. Now that could be a physical behavior. So you're maybe working with feet, but you notice that catching is becoming worse. Or you're working on training, loading, or catching, or whatever it is you want to do, preparation for the vet. And what you notice is that actually the donkey isn't quite so keen to spend time with you. Your mule's a little bit more nervous around some of the other things that were fine. So that's a really important indication that whatever you're doing is not building a relationship, and it may be causing some sort of detriment where the behavior isn't, what you're training or the method isn't working. So watch your donkey as a whole, watch your mule's behavior as a whole, to see that nothing is influencing all the good stuff that you already had. Sometimes it's obvious where you get the appearance of other behaviors that we tend to wait until, you know, we're doing some training and then the behavior gets worse. We see more kicking or maybe biting or tail swishing. We go, oh, that's not working. We really need to pick it up way before then, that our donkeys, that particular training method is not working for our animals. And that would be about the animal's behavior changing negatively like that, with the kicking and the biting or pulling faces or ears back or those sorts of stuff, would be obviously a very direct indication that something's not right with what you're doing with them. I think that you want to be seeing your donkey becoming calmer, keener to interact with you. If your training method is working, you should see a donkey that is wanting to spend more time with you, that wants to work, that wants to engage. Now that comes back a little bit to the positive reinforcement element, that if you're using positive reinforcement, scratches, food, those sorts of things, inevitably your animal wants to do more work because it's enjoying that work. So it's a key aspect that you want your donkey's behavior to increase, to improve towards you. So you're seeing a calmer donkey, you're seeing a more relaxed donkey, a more willing donkey. If you're seeing increases in anxiety, if you're seeing your donkey being a bit more nervous about things, then probably the training is not working and it's going in the wrong direction. What I mean is in the slightly longer term. I don't mean on the edge of the comfort zone. So when we might be picking up a donkey's foot and we're stroking the leg, and that bit where the donkey goes, oh, I don't quite like that. And that's the edge of the comfort zone. There's a tiny bit of anxiety there. That might be normal. That donkey rests the foot, you give them a big scratch and a reward, they move past that, and that's absolutely fine. But if your donkey is becoming more anxious, more nervous, either with you or with other equines that it spends its life with, then there's probably your training method isn't working. Ideally, you want to be just seeing some slow, steady progress down your written shaping plan. There's another advantage of having a written shaping plan, because you are ticking off steps and you can say, yep, great, we're doing that, we're doing that, we're doing that. I can see that we're progressing. You're cross-referencing that against the donkey's emotions, and are they calm, are they relaxed, are they happy? with what you're doing, and you know that your behavior and training method is probably working. The question you will probably be asking, but what if it's not working fast enough? That's what people get stuck with when they're sort of looking at it. Is it working, or is there a faster method I could be using to get where I want to be? And possibly, yeah, for sure, there's always a faster way to do it, but you have to question whether you want that faster way in terms of, will it build your relationship? Is it resonate with who you are and follow your principles and your values? So faster isn't always better. Come back to that, how do we choose our methods? One about that builds relationships. You know, you can think about humans in this sense. If I'm trying to teach you something new, we probably need to have a bit of connection and a bit of a relationship, and we'd know each other a little bit before I was trying to teach you something new. If I just started to push and come on, let's do it faster, let's do it faster, come on, let's get this, let's do that, put the pressure on, you'd probably not want to be working with me for too long. And it's the same for donkeys. You know, they're smart creatures, and they certainly know when they want to be working with somebody and when they don't. So the unfortunate thing is about a lot of this is the reflection, the donkey's behavior is a reflection of our behavior. And that's even more so for mules. You know, mules are really good at trusting one person. The donkey's sense of self-preservation feeds into that mule behavior, and mules really, you know, the science of behavior is that with horses, you can get away with making mistakes. You can get away with pushing them too far. You can, because they're much more forgiving. They have less sense of personal survival. You know, running away is the way to do things. With a mule, that sense of self-preservation means that if you overreach them once and scare them, they are really unwilling to do it a second time. And so you have to apply the rules of shaping and the science of behavior really well to get the right things for your mule and donkey. That's why there are no cavalry mules. You know, mules throughout history have been used in war, but never to charge into battle. You know, Napoleon rode a mule, but he had to get off and sit on a horse if he wanted to get into battle. You know, they have mules that will pull carriages, they will take ammunition, they'll take away the wounded, but they won't run into battle because that's dangerous. They learn once and that's it, I'm not doing it again. And so that's the mentality that we're doing with. I worked with a mule a long time ago. It was a young mule, 5 years old, pretty unhandled, had a bad start. I was preparing it. It was a rescue case, so I was preparing it to get onto the lorry from a rescue situation, and I was just getting it to lead round and walk over some plastic on the ground. And I was doing really well. There was a little tiny bit of wind. The edge of the plastic kind of went like that as we went past it, and it took me 45 minutes just to get the mule back, stand next to the plastic, because in his mind, that little flap of plastic was really dangerous, and we couldn't predict what it was going to do next. And it was likely to jump up and kill us, so we better stay away from it. And so when we're shaping behavior, when we've got a written plan, when we're doing these things well, we're at that mule standard. And if you have donkeys, just think about how it would be if you were training a mule. If you have mules, you know already how it is to train a mule. So really important that we keep applying those principles. So we should be just seeing a slow, steady progress in what we're doing with a calm animal that's relaxed and comfortable. Any questions? Any thoughts on that particular element? Any disagreements? You're allowed to disagree. I know you're all too nice. I can't believe that. I've been to Australia. I know you've all got a sense of. Anyway, moving on. Right. What do I do if I lose my way in our training? Okay. Now, the first thing to say is the way to avoid losing your way in training is to have a written plan. Might mention that before, but if you have a written plan that's set out and you've got your 120 steps or whatever it is, you know where you're going. So the first thing you can do when it starts to go wrong is to go back down your shaping plan, 4 or 5 steps, find something the animal can do comfortably, and then come back up again. It's that simple. Really easy process. You just make it easier. What tends to happen without a plan is we go, oh, it's not working. What do I do? Let's try something else. Let's get some more advice. Let's go on the internet and ask on a forum. Yeah, that will do your head in. You get hundreds of pieces of advice, all of this. So having a real clear plan, what your values are, what your training method is, having a shaping plan that you can work with will help prevent you from losing your way in training. But if you do, the things that I would say is, first, don't just take anyone's advice. Okay, I'm sure as a group you've got lots of experience, and donkey owners are much more stable at this than equine owners. You know, a lot of equine owners with a horse will go onto a forum and they go, my horse does this, what should I do? Which is one of the biggest mistakes you can make, because you will get like 5,000 answers that tell you to do 4,997 different things. The advice that you want to follow, if you're going to ask for advice from other people, is from the people who ask you questions first. My donkey bites, what should I do? I've no idea, but does he do it on Tuesdays? Does he do it when it's raining? Does he do it? Have you checked that it's in pain? That he's in pain? When did he start doing it? Does he do it all the time? And that's the only way to really believe that somebody is going to give you a answer that is related to the true nature of your individual animal and your situation. What tends to happen when we ask for advice is people give us their advice that worked for them in their situation with their unique donkey in their unique environment. My donkey bit me, what did I do? Oh, I told him off and I jumped up and down and I smacked him on the nose and he never did it again. So that's what you should do with your donkey. And that's logical, because that's what we want human beings do. But actually, if that doesn't fit with your values, if it's not your donkey, if it's not your environment, that may not work for you. So look for the advice from people who ask you lots of questions first. And that will be predominantly people who are using some sort of science of behavior, because they will be seeking to find out what are all the answers, because they know there are lots of different reasons for behavior. You know, pain, environment, previous experience, history, all sorts of things. And so until you find those things, difficult to know how to move forward. I would always say, don't go to the problem to fix the problem if you lose your way. So let's say you want to teach your donkey to load, don't take it to the float or to the trailer to load. Take it to the rope on the ground and the tarpaulin and the bunting and the shaping plan for trust, problem solving and confidence, or the shaping plan for loading. If your donkey has a kicking issue and you want to teach it to pick up its feet, don't go to the feet to pick up to solve the problem. That is too big a step. We've talked about the size of the steps, and it causes a real issue with anxiety, and it's dangerous, and it can make the behavior worse. Sometimes if you're really strong and you're really good, it can work, and that's why it appears to work. But for most of us, don't go to the problem to solve the problem. Find a smaller step, find where you can do it away from it. Because if you go to the trailer and you try and get that donkey on, the donkey goes, no, I'm not going to go. What are you going to do then? You're either going to have to stand there for 3 or 4 hours hoping it goes on, or you're going to use more force, which frightens the donkey, and then it teaches that the trailer's a bad place. Or you're going to walk away, realizing your mistake, and the donkey goes, cool, so when you try and get me in the trailer and I refuse, we leave, and that works. So you don't want to set any of those things up. You want to actually say, let me work with a program that teaches my donkey, wherever I go, you follow. And we break down the loading into different elements. So that is walking over things, walking over hollow things, walking between narrow things, walking under things, and then we begin to build them together. So our donkey is still nowhere near the trailer, but it's walking over obstacles that are narrow and has things above them and maybe into dark spaces, and they learn to follow you wherever you go. And then the trailer is just another obstacle, not let's go, we've got a load on the trailer. So it's important not to go to that problem to solve the problem. As I mentioned, if you do get lost, just go back down your shaping plan and find an easy step, find something to reward, build it back up, have a look at, have I missed some steps and I need to just add something else in? Maybe we haven't done a piece of training. My donkey doesn't like having his feet picked up. Yeah, okay. But actually your donkey's nervous about being caught. And so by the time you catch him, he's nervous and anxious, and then you pick up his feet, it's always going to be a problem. Whereas if you could fix the catching first, have him comfortable with all his body being touched, then the feet issue will be much smaller. So you've got to know you're working on the right thing. Ask if you can make the steps that you're taking any smaller. You know, can I, what I'm doing, I'm a bit confused, it's not working. You have to, can I just make it easier? Can I go for half a step instead of 1 step? Can I go for 2 steps instead of 5? Can I go for 10 seconds instead of 15? And it's important to check that it's not environmental that's causing that problem. So has anything changed in the environment? And that could be weather, companions, feed, all sorts of things in the environment will affect your animal's behavior and change. Is my mare coming into season? What's the age of the donkey? All of those things that will influence the behavior are important to eliminate as things that could be interfering with whatever it is that you're trying to do. So you really have to, when you encounter a problem, you get stuck, you have to step back and you have to begin to look at the elements that you're building. So the final piece of this, there are 6 key things that I think, in my experience, if you can get right, it will improve your training by like 80%. And I'm just working on the 80-20 rule here, Pareto's rule, where 20% of your effort, these 6 things, will see an 80% improvement in whatever you do, if you can master them. Don't hold me to the science. It's just a way of thinking about it, all right? It's just the fact that, for me, what I've seen is most behavioral issues, when people get lost, are down to these things. They've either misread the true behavior of the animal and understanding of their true nature. So they are not listening to that individual animal, whether it needs more time to think, or it needs smaller steps, or it needs actually to move on quicker because it's a more confident animal, so they're boring it by being too slow. Or they're applying a method for horses to donkeys and then wondering why they're not getting the right results. So first, you have to make sure that whatever you're doing is reaching to that animal's true nature and to their species abilities and behaviors. Then you have to communicate correctly. So this is about positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, punishment if you choose to use it. As a trainer, I try to avoid punishment, and I don't recommend we use punishment deliberately as training. But if you choose to, that's fine, that's your choice, but use it correctly. So all of these things have to be done with the right timing, and being able to either reward the right behavior or to release the pressure in the right place. So often my donkey doesn't lead, so people put pressure, they pull on the lead rope, there's pressure here, pressure there, the animal kind of stands, isn't moving, so they release the pressure because they want to change position, or they get bored, or they can't wait that long, or whatever it might be. And when they release that pressure, what they've just said to the animal is standing still works. And then they pull again. The animal goes, I know what to do. If I stand still, then you stop pulling. So that's clearly what you want me to do, stand still. Great, no problem. And the animal learns to stand still every time we release that pressure. Not to do with the animal's behavior, it's not being stubborn, it's our communication that's wrong. The donkey comes up and gives us a little nibble. So we put a hand on his head, we push his head away, and we think we're saying, no, don't do that. But the animal actually thinks, cool, I come up and give you a nibble and you give me a little bit of fuss. Yeah, but I'm telling you off. No, but to the donkey's perception is, you actually were touching my head and stroking me. You're just really rubbish at giving me attention, but it was better than no attention at all. So for your donkey that wants activity, wants interaction, you could actually be rewarding it. So you have to know to be able to communicate properly. The third step is you have to be able to shape behavior effectively. So if there's a problem in what you're doing, maybe your steps are too big, you haven't put the right shaping plan in place, or you need to do several shaping plans at once. You don't have to just have one, you could be working on 4 or 5, especially for a young animal. So get your shaping right, the size of the steps that you're applying. The fourth element would be comfort zones. So you're thinking about how you stretch the animal's comfort zones correctly by asking and managing their, not overreaching, not flooding them, not causing them to be terrified, but just making the size of the step and what you're asking them correctly, and reading those comfort zones, which is more of a challenge for the donkey and mule. The fifth step for your donkeys and mules is about having a plan for problem solving, trust and confidence. Most people want their donkeys to be more confident, they want to trust them more, and they want the donkeys to be able to solve problems in a constructive sort of way. And we hope that will just happen just because we do training and we're amazing people and we spend time with our animals. My experience is the best way to achieve all of those things is to actually have a deliberate training plan that works on building your animal's confidence with you. that works on trust. Okay? Just for a matter of interest, just to check you're all still with me, what is trust? What is trust? How would you define trust? You can put it in the chat box if you want to. Just think about it if you don't. But what is trust? How would you define trust? Because so people talk about it so much. They're like, I want my donkey to trust me. And it's really easy for us to kind of have those elements. We're all thinking about it. Anybody want to unmute themselves and tell me what trust might be? Oh, you're a shy bunch. Okay, Dan's given me calm and willing to try, ability to predict the behavior. Well done, Chase. Good. Belief that I have your back. These are all nice things. Yeah, trust to me is when an animal is relaxed, follow my lead and accept my soothing if it is worried. Okay. Could I trust a human or a donkey to always do the wrong thing, or to be overexcitable, or to kick out, or could I trust a donkey to bite me if I did the wrong thing? What I'm asking is, could trust, and the way we use the word, could it be a negative thing, referring to behavior? You know, we often say, you might with humans think, trust, I can trust you to be late, trust them to always do that wrong, trust them to behave in a way that's inappropriate, whatever it might be. So for me, trust is simply the, go on, Chase, yeah.
It's good to know where you stand with people, even if it's a negative thing. At least you can then know how you're going to respond, because you know how they're going to respond, because they're consistent.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's essentially where Anne's put there, predictable. Yeah, what we're talking about here is predictability. Trust is simply the ability to predict the behavior of another animal or person. And so if you want your animal to trust you, you need them to be able to predict your behavior. And if you're going to be inconsistent or erratic, or becoming into the training with lots of different ideas because you've been on one of those internet forums and asked and they've changed what you're doing, or you've been to a demonstration. So many equines I see like, oh no, who have you been to see now? Because we're changing what we're doing, they can't predict our behavior. So part of a plan for shaping for trust, problem solving and confidence is that you're actually doing things together that allows you to predict the donkey's behavior and for them to predict your behavior. And that will increase confidence. It doesn't happen just by doing it. I mean, it will, but it takes a lot longer. Whereas you should specifically work on it, especially with young animals or nervous animals, then you break it down and make something that's achievable. And finally, the one thing that often goes wrong is step number 6, is that people forget to enjoy the journey. You know, it's a really easy thing to say, but so easy to forget to enjoy the ups, the downs, the difficulties, the confusion, the bits when we're not sure we've lost our way in training, when we've overreached it and the animal's kicked or it's gone backwards, or all of those sorts of things. We have to enjoy all of those things, and because that's the only way to keep moving forward and to enjoy it. So many people I see get equines and they get problems and then they're like, oh, and you think, wow, that must be really enjoyable having donkeys and mules, because you're really enjoying that journey. No, it's fine, I really like them. I just want to be, I'll be happy when we get everything fixed. And you want to avoid that. You want to come back to that relaxation. You want to come back to enjoying the journey, because that will take everything else and make it much easier. So that's where we're kind of heading with those 6 steps. If you can get those 6 things right, so if you've got an issue, if you've fallen off the training wagon, if you can't find where the problem is, explore those 6 things first and see if any of those need improvement. And then if you've got all of those right and you've still got the issue, then you can move on to some of the more complicated things like variable schedules of reinforcement and stuff like that, that will be telling you why your animal maybe is doing what it's doing. Cool. Okay. That kind of takes those 3 things. Questions, thoughts, worries, general discussion, comments, anything at all? Now's your chance. Go, Chase.
Well, I heard you at the Donkey Welfare Symposium, and I was very impressed with this whole shaping thing, because my OCD likes to put things in order. And I did actually purchase your Horseman Within, How to Create the Shaping Plan, and Shaping the Untouched or Nervous Equine. And I've read both of those. But the donkey that I wanted to work with, he was a wild caught donkey that we bought from the sales. And he was always a bit shy of people, but he was tracking along okay. And then we got him gelded, and he had a lot of complications. So we kind of had to flood him to treat his complications. And ever since then, he's been really shut down, even in the paddock. Like, he's in with 4 other donkeys. They have quite a natural life, but the young sort of joyful Jack that we bought has sort of turned into this rather sort of serious little gelding. Is there any, I know you've worked at the donkey sanctuary, so I'm assuming you've seen donkeys that have had, their hearts broken, I guess, or whatever I would describe this as. Is there any, can training like this work to sort of bring them out of their shell? Like, he'll do stuff, but you sort of feel like he's just doing it with, like, if I just stay in my happy place, this will all stop, sort of thing. He doesn't ever seem to be really eager to be doing any of it.
What sort of training, what sort of methods are you using to do your training?
Well, most of it's just been really quite gentle. It's just been like leading him around the property. He loves my husband, Keith. He thinks the sun rises and sets with Keith. Yeah, the Keith that's on here.
Fantastic.
But we haven't sort of tried anything really fixed with him, which is why I got your books. But I'm scared with where to start with it. Like, do I pick a particular task? Like, do I go, okay, we want you to pick your feet up and sort of work with that? Is there a shaping plan that I can, because like the nervous one talks about, like, even being able to approach them. But we can approach him. He just doesn't look very happy about it. He sort of seems to just tolerate it.
So he's kind of predicting your behavior may not be based on previous experience. It might not end well because of things you've had to do, which is sometimes what happens. So I think that the things that you can do is more time with Keith. If he loves Keith and that's what's happening, then great. Anything that you can begin to add positivity into the relationship. Then your training is about, like I said earlier, building relationship first. So there are 2 ways to do that, really. One is about either quality time. So you start doing quality time exercises that are just about being together, not asking anything, and being around the animal. If you can, and you can tell me, can you give him a scratch? Have you got to the point where you can actually scratch him and touch him and that sort of thing? Not really. Okay, there's the face that said not really.
Keith may have a different view than me, because he likes Keith more than he likes me. He kind of will stand there, but he's sort of, leaning away from my hand a bit, like, oh, okay, but I'm not really liking this. What do you think, Keith? He's more your donkey.
Yeah, his behaviour sort of changed probably in the last 6 months or so. Very much when we first got him, he'd almost be at a 45-degree angle away from you, but still keep his feet where they were. More recently, he's become a lot more trusting, I think. So I have no problems picking up his hoofs now, which was a real problem when we first got him. So really doing anything more than just giving him a pat on the head was problematic. But I'd say in the last 6 months, he's probably come a little bit more gentle and more approachable than he was before. There's certainly no problems, catching him, putting a headstall on him or head collar on him and moving him around. But as Chase said, he's almost feels reluctant. He's doing it out of duty rather than love, which is not really what you want.
And that makes perfect sense. And so that's why, for me, it's so important that we're working on relationship ahead of just doing behavior. So the things that you start to look at is like I said, going to the problem to solve the problem. This is about, actually, the underlying foundation is you want an animal that's going to stand there calmly and quietly and love being scratched. All equines have to learn that being scratched is a positive thing. And so actually just going out there and teaching him. Now this is then comes into the timing element and communication. It's about, okay, how do I, if he's doing that leaning and you kind of give him a scratch and then you stop scratching, effectively what you're saying is you being slightly nervous stops me scratching you. Because you're leaning away and doing that. Now, that's not necessarily what you're thinking, but that's what he's thinking. So getting the timing right to go, okay, I'm going to give you a nice wither scratch. And you want that moment of just relaxation where he just goes from this to that. That's when you just pause and you take your hand off. So this is all about communication and timing. Ladies, I don't know, what I'm talking about here is you may be lucky enough to have a loving partner in your life, and they come in and they just start stroking your hair or maybe massaging your shoulders. That's a lovely thing, isn't it? Unless you're tense and anxious. Get off, what are you doing? Yeah, because it doesn't feel good. So you've got to get that relaxation in the right moment. If you're relaxed and someone just gives you a little, you know, shoulder rub, that can be a really positive thing, provided they don't want anything else, but that's great, you know. And this is what we're talking about with the donkey, is finding those moments. You're deliberately working on having him just relaxed around getting scratches and just softening into it. And then what you're shaping the behavior towards, from going like this to being able to learn that he can go like that. Except if I lean into you, you give me the scratches. Oh, now I've got some control, so I can ask for scratches. I can ask for contact. And then you've got a way of seeing, does he really want to be with you? Does he want to offer things? So one part of your plan is to just work on how do we get him to understand that it's really good to be scratched and that timing of that connection. And then you can do that maybe with the trust and shaping the plan for problem solving, trust and confidence, where you're doing something which has little tiny steps, you know, can I walk you over a lead rope? And there's lots of scratches and there's lots of positive reinforcement for that, so that your training becomes positive. You've got to overdo it here so that he's wanting to do it because it's positive, because there are things to be doing. So having a bit of direction in that shaping plan would be cool. You can do it without, you can just spend time in doing all those sorts of things. But if you're doing what you're doing with him already, it seems to make sense to begin to build his confidence by doing the shaping plan for trust, problem solving and confidence, you know, going over some obstacles and around things and walking and leading and handling and all that sort of stuff. But it's very much about getting that timing right in the communication of the scratches and the rewards, so that he wants to be with it and he can begin to trust it. My experience is we're familiar with that. Sorry, go on, Chase. Yeah.
No. So should we just quickly, and then I'll let somebody else ask a question, because the other four are all super friendly, so they mob us, and he kind of, we're hoping that they're mobbing, like he'll kind of
get the idea
that they like people. Yeah, but it doesn't seem to work like that. So should we make sure we take him away from the? It has a little bit, like we got a much older, much bigger donkey, and Keith was saying in the last 6 months, I mean, the last 6 months, so we got her a year ago, and having her has definitely calmed him down a little bit. But should we move him away from the others so that he can get his own one-on-one time?
I think definitely you need to create that opportunity. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
You know, it depends on how bonded he is to the others, and you don't want to cause any stress by separating it. But if it may be just a gate or over a little fence or something that allows you to work with him, and that's a really good question that we put there, because actually Fiona asked about, do you ever use another donkey or mule to help train? I find they gain confidence from seeing others doing something. Now, equines can't do observational learning, as far as all the science tells us so far. So they can't watch another equine and go, oh, I saw you do that, therefore it must be okay for me to do that. If they could, it'd be great, because you just take like a trained dressage animal and then you could just show a younger animal and they know what to do. But it doesn't work like that. What we have to do is we can do social learning. So if an animal is in an environment, as you're trying to do their chase with other donkeys that are around you, that will have a minimal impact, because the other donkeys aren't running away and giving off signals of you should be terrified of human beings. So there will be an aspect of right, okay, there's the other animal. But here's the challenge. This is about the true nature and understanding your individual animals. Do any of you have a fear or phobia? Like spiders, snakes, heights, you know, public speaking, whatever it might be, that you flying is a good one. Claustrophobia. Anybody really get nervous if they are stuck in maybe an elevator or coffin or something like that? I don't know. The point I'm trying to get to is, okay, so if you think about the fear or having a fear or phobia like that, if you're lucky enough to have someone in your life that you totally trust and you have confidence from, just because they're holding the spider, the snake, or going to get on the plane and fly, does that mean that you're going to go, yeah, I love flying, I'm going to get on and do it? Or yeah, no, pass me that scary thing. Because what we're doing here is when we ask a donkey to follow another donkey or to take confidence from that other donkey, there's more than one factor. How bonded am I to my friend? You know, if the fear or the obstacle or the thing that I'm trying to do, people in your case, Chase, it is a tiny fear, and I really like my friend and I trust them, I might follow them and I might come up to that person. If, however, my fear of humans is huge, even though I really, really bonded to my friend, I may have a lot of conflict and I want to go with him, but I'm really nervous of you. If I'm really terrified of humans, but I'm not really bonded or don't really like that other donkey very much, then I'm certainly not going to come up and see humans. If I'm not really bonded, but my fear of people is quite small, I might make a bit of an approach. So it's not as simple, and this is where it gets more complicated when you build it down. It's not as simple as just going, well, if one donkey does it, the other donkey will do it. If it was like that, we're supposedly a really intelligent species. None of us should have a fear or phobia, because all you need to do is find somebody else who doesn't have that fear or phobia and say, look, it's fine. See, I can hold this. I can do that. Why can't you do it? Anybody up for that training? No, because it doesn't work. It gives us a little bit of, and if your fear is only tiny, you might help you, yeah, but if it's big, it's not going to work for you. So I don't tend to deliberately build in, we must use another donkey or mule to help the others. Obviously with your donkeys, you've generally got two around at least, and you just have to train them together, and that's great. It can work the other way. If you've got a nervous donkey that's jumping and running and panicking, pretty soon your more confident donkey might well end up panicking and kicking and running, because that's social learning. So you have to be a bit careful. It works the negative way more than the positive way. Sorry, Chase. Okay. Any other questions, thoughts, worries, concerns? Okay. Yeah, go on, Pat, tell us.
Just an example, you were talking about mules and that you have to be very careful not to make a mistake. I rode a mule for some years. We bred him ourselves. Our biggest sticking point was that he would not go out by himself. And this day I decided he was going to go, and that was that. And I got about a couple of K away from home, and he started rearing. And I had to make a very quick decision, because I knew I wasn't going to be able to stick on if he kept doing that. And I had my quick decision was that I slid off the moment his legs hit the ground, but I then led him because he was willing to follow me. And I led him up the road for several kilometres, and then I hopped on and rode back. And that worked very well, and he was much better after that. Yep.
And I think that's a classic. What people do in training when we're talking about methods is they get in their head, I've got to make him do it. I've got to force him past it. One of the most common questions with horse owners is okay to get off if he's nervous? And traditionally the advice is no, don't. You mustn't get off, he'll learn. It's like, no, he's gonna, if you just get off and lead him past and everything's calm, the animal's gonna go, well, there wasn't an issue. But if you start making an issue of something and you go to the problem to fix it and you try and get past that dustbin and you try and force it and then you just end up making it bigger. And so getting off, not having a train wreck and then just getting back on again, was, oh, okay, there was nothing for me to worry about, and we carry on.
He was happy to ride home because he knew that was good.
Yeah, absolutely. So you go around the problem. So often people try to bang up against the problem, and quite often it's just walk around it. Just get off, just make it easier, do something simpler. Don't get into a fight about it. They're not trying to get one over on us. They're not trying to be malicious. They are just trying to get along just like us, find the path of least resistance, get home safe. And for me, safety is so important. Like you said there, Pat, absolutely. You don't want to fall off and injure yourself. It's much better to get off walk home, do whatever you got to do safely, and then figure out what do you do next, than it is to cling on, flip him over backwards, and then never be able to get on him ever again.
That's right.
So, you know, and mules, and I think that's what mules teach. If you're lucky enough to work with mules, like, you have to get it right, you know, unless you just want to force them into shutdown and learn helplessness where they just do what they're told. If you want to think in mule and you want to have that relationship, then you do the things right, or they're not going to play with it, which is really good. It's a great example. Anything else? Anybody else? Any other questions? Yeah, Belinda.
Hi, how are you?
You're good.
This is my daughter Lucy, and we're relatively new to donkeys in that we've got 2 donkeys and we've had them for 2 years. They're Lucy's. We've got a small Irish who's 3, and a bigger one who we're not 100% sure how it is, but we think about 10, a Teamster. And I was saying to Lucy, pay attention to what Ben's saying, you know, because you want to train the boys to do something, and we can lead them, we can take them for walks, we can lift their feet. She said to me, well, what would I train them to do? So I'm passing the question on to you, just to do any other interesting or basic stuff with them. Have you got any suggestions?
Yeah, poor Lucy. For the pressure that you got put under there from your mum. That's horrific. Oh, Belinda, you know.
I know. Well, Ben, most people know she did 3 PowerPoint slides to try and convince me to get the donkeys in the first place. So, you know, I'm making her continue to work hard to keep these donkeys.
I noticed how you passed the very quick there, Lucy's donkeys. Yeah, I saw that, Lucy. Yeah, I see how that works. Okay, Lucy, I think, you know, the key thing that you want to be thinking about is twofold. You want your donkeys to be able to cope with domestication. So you want them to have the most comfortable life possible. So you're thinking about things like, how can I prepare them for veterinary intervention? Equine dental technicians, you know, how can I make it ready? Shaping plan for having their teeth handled and standing open in the mouth. How can I make sure that whatever eventualities might come up, my animals are capable of dealing with that? So, you know, you want to make sure loading, dentist, vet, all of those things. Now you're probably going to say, oh, you know, he loads pretty good. What I'm thinking about is something we call the generalization phase. So this is where most people will train a donkey to do something in a particular way with them. You know, it's comfortable, it's the weekend. I'm guessing maybe you have to go to school during the week, so most training takes place the weekend. And so it's calm, it's relaxed, it's sunny. You just, you know, yeah, we're going for a bit of we're doing what we're doing. Maybe we practice our loading like that. Okay, but what happens when, heaven forbid, there was a fire and you need to get your donkey on the trailer in a rush in the middle of the night? Have we done the practice for that? Well, no, he loads fine. Yeah, on Sunday afternoons when you're taking your time. And so, you know, what about the vet thing? Well, he's really calm. I can pick up his feet or I can look in his mouth. The generalization phase is where we start to go, okay, can I do it faster? Can I do it wrong? Can I do it bigger? Can I do it at different times of the day? Can I do it in different weather conditions? Can I do it in different locations? So you begin to think how you can show your animal, because equines aren't great at generalization. You know, we see some bunting here and the animal goes, that's bunting. I've learned about bunting. That's great. You put some bunting somewhere else, they go, what is that? You're like, well, you've seen bunting. And they go, yeah, but that was bunting over there. That's different bunting because it's somewhere else. Once you've shown it to them in 4 or 5 different places, then they start to go, that's bunting. Recognize, I can do bunting. I can do it when it's windy. I can do it when it's dark. I can just do bunting. And you need to do that with everything that you've got for those animals. So you get your shaping plan for the vet and you practice, you know, handling all the bits of the body that you don't want to handle, and you want to practice doing it in a rush, and you want to practice doing it when you smell of antiseptic and, you know, things like that, so that, you know, when your vet does come, and they got to do stuff, the donkey's like, okay, have you practiced, you know, raising the vein, putting your thumb on the neck, like you're going to do an injection, all of those sorts of things, so that your animals are like, I can cope with domestication. That's the first thing. All that sort of thing. Yeah. It's a good question. Can we do it by torchlight and white paper overalls? Yeah, you absolutely. That's, you know, there is no limitation. It's your imagination to prepare your animals for domestication. It's not the vet's job. It's not the dentist's job. The other thing then you can do, and that comes up to what Chase was saying, is maybe the shaping plan for problem solving, trust and confidence. So that's about you beginning to create the complexities of obstacles so that your animal, whatever they meet with you, they're able to deal with it. You learn about their learning styles, they learn about yours. And that's about building up the obstacles, maybe long reining in the future with them. So you can begin to do that. Even if you don't want to do driving, it's mentally stimulating if it's right for them. And you end up long reining around the obstacles and doing all that sort of thing. And then you've got options to, do you want to go to a show? Do you want to go to a competition? Do you want to just do it at home? You know, but those are the foundations that I think I would be recommending you put in.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Ben. That's great.
That'll keep you busy for the next 6 months to 12 months.
Well, that's right. And we've got access to an arena at the moment too. So I'm thinking, what should we be doing in there? So we will even set up some obstacles and do some different things. So that's good.
Yeah, definitely. Again, shape the behavior. You know, we'll set up some obstacles. Worries the hell out of me, Belinda, because have a plan. Okay, what does that look like? You know, what's the smallest thing? How do we build that up? Because what people do is they go, I think it'll be fine. Let's just do this. And they come in at this level. Now that might work, or you might scare your donkey witless. And then you got to fix that because now the donkey's terrified of something. So you have the plan that says, okay, how do I work through this in small steps? Even if I do those first steps, that first 15 steps might take one session, but we've done it, we know it, we've ticked them off, we're great. Now we move to the more difficult stuff.
Yeah.
Rather than making the mistake of coming in at step 15 and then going, oh, I wish I hadn't done that.
Yeah.
So it's not about we'll get a few obstacles and see what happens. It's about what is our plan to do that, you know. And I'm not plugging I've spent 20 years talking about these things and showing people how to use them. When they use them, they go, "That's amazing. Why didn't I do it sooner?" I try to get people to write their own, hence the ebook there that Chase mentioned about how to write a shaping plan. But a lot of people are like, well, how small are the steps? Where do I start? So I actually ended up writing a whole load on the website for all sorts of different stuff so that people could get them as an example, use a couple and then figure out how to do it themselves. But make sure, and it's a good thing for everything, whether you want to get fit, whether you want to, oh look, there's something, there's the horseman within.
Oh yeah, right.
So there's an ebook, and all the shaping plans come with like 24 pages of all the stuff we've been talking about today, and then the specifics about that topic, and then the shaping plan itself. What have we got? I've got a couple of chat questions here. Please, can we steps for teaching a donkey to accept a rectal thermometer? Yeah, sure. It's really about desensitization, small steps, and about positive reinforcement. You know, you've got to have some value in there, scratches or food to mark that behavior. The behavior that you're actually training is standing still. It's not accepting a rectal thermometer. The behavior is standing still, and that's the behavior you need to mark. So this is about your timing and your communication. Whether that's the release of pressure or whether that's scratches, it's standing still. Because if the donkey can offer standing still, it's the one behavior most people forget to teach. That will allow it to do grooming, the veterinary inspections, thermometers, that sort of stuff. And it's finding out where your donkey is on that. Where will you accept my hand touching you now? You go through the imaginary rectal thermometer scenario. Can I lift your tail? If your donkey's clamping the tail and nervous, you can't move on until that donkey's calm and relaxed with that, standing still and relaxing their tail. Moving the tail side to side, touching either side of the anus, moving it around. Okay, you're doing all of that sort of stuff. So your donkey's like, what are you doing back there? You know? And then maybe don't put this on YouTube, you know, like film yourself doing it. People will be started calling the police or something. But you might really want that desensitized, lots of rewards. And then your thermometer, you bring that in, you just hold it across. And so it's touching, you have that animal stand still. And you build it up in that way to allow that animal to relax, remembering that you're marking standing still and that you're using rewards to reward the same behavior, which is really important. Sorry, Fiona, say that again, or type it in there. Yeah, cool. I mean, the principle, this is the great thing about the science of behavior. If you can learn the science of behavior, if you learn about shaping and positive reinforcement, you can apply it to anything. It doesn't matter whether it's a rectal thermometer or the dentist or loading. The principles are the same. And so you just reapply the same principles to whatever it is that you want to teach. And the more shaping you do, the better you get at it and the easier it is to do. These things, there's also, you know, there's a lot of this stuff, and there's some free resources on my Thinkific site. So if you want to explore some of these in more detail, I'm just going to quickly flick here. You should be able just to see there. This is Thinkific, and so there's lots of different courses that you can pick up there and explore some of this. There's also these free ebooks and things like that that you can also explore some of these topics in if you need to get a little bit more detail. And there's some stuff on my YouTube channel as well, some videos to have a look. And for those of you who haven't already, I've done a lot of webinars for the Donkey Sanctuary, and if you can find their webinar page on their website, there's 5 or 6 behaviour webinars on there where we talk about different aspects of behaviour. So there's a huge amount of resources out there for you just to explore all of these topics and see how you build them up, really. Cool. Anything else before
I've just letting everybody know, I've put a link to Ben's Facebook page up on the Donkey Society Facebook group as well. So if people didn't write that down before it was off the screen.
Thank you. They just to say, you know, I'm a trainer who works with horses, donkeys, and mules. And just remember, you know, I end up often talking about horses because that's the bigger audience, but we're working at the mule standard. And I make that clear to all the horse people. I'm not really training horses, we're training mules, and that applies. So everything that we do, unless I specifically say, applies directly to donkeys and mules, and you can take it from there. Okay, Tracy's got a great question here to kind of close with it, which is, you've talked about a donkey that doesn't want to be with you, but what about a donkey that is pushy and bargy in your space? Brilliant. Okay, you might have just briefly saw where I flashed that up there about how to say no. There's a little course there, which is a course about setting boundaries and how to say no. So saying no is absolutely fine, but it's how you say no is important. And this is where the skill of rewarding the right behavior comes in. So you have to ask, you know, Tracy, is this donkey pushy and bargy because they're nervous and anxious? Is it because they just don't know the rules and they have lack experience? Or is it because they want your physical attention and you're inadvertently rewarding that behavior by touching or something like that? So you're asking those questions. So I can't give you a direct answer. How do you do this? Because we'd have to go into that thing, having said people are going to ask more questions before they just give you a straight answer. You'd need to find out why they were doing it. Then you'd have to say, what are your personal principles and values? How do you want to train? You know, because there's only a number of ways of doing this, you know, from punishment and physical force right through to the other end of scale, which is probably where I would be recommending that you begin to reward the desired behavior, which in this case is standing still, standing at appropriate distance from you. So if your donkey is nervous and anxious, then we need to get rid of that first. That will cause less barging and less thing. And it might be that it's specific situations where the donkey is bargy or pushy. So you look at those. I mean, the donkey's bargy and pushy when it's veterinary inspections. So therefore, I need to work on that. So he's not anxious, then he won't barge and push. But if it's about attention, then it's about saying, okay, how do I reward the correct behaviors? The other things you need to do is you need to practice ahead of time. So you need to decide a process that you're going to use to fix that issue. When he's barging and pushing into you, then that's not the moment to think, what do I do now? Because by the time you thought, what do I do now and how am I going to deal with it, your timing's wrong. So you need to rehearse ahead of time. So if your donkey wants attention, then it's very much about rewarding standing still. So you begin a program of shaping for standing still boredom. Okay, so you actually begin to start with 5-second intervals of just stand still. When you stand still next to me at the appropriate distance in your car, you're going to get scratches, you're going to get attention. If you push into me, I'm not going to reward you, I'm not going to touch you, I'm not going to put my hand on you and push you away, because remember, that's positive reinforcement. I'm going to just maneuver you with a head collar, or I'm just going to move away. When you stand still, I'm going to reward you. So you start saying, if you want attention, and it's probably attention seeking, if you said there, then you reward what the behavior that you want, standing still in this case. And you begin to mark that, and then you begin to do it in different places. And then you do it on the lead, and then you do it in the generalization phase that I talked to Lucy and Belinda about that. it's difficult for people to get around because it's a physical behavior. My donkey's kicking. How do I use positive reinforcement to stop kicking? Well, you teach them that keeping their feet on the ground is the right thing to do, and standing still, and then you shape the behavior with positive reinforcement, and you teach them how to do the right things. And it's the same here. It's a different mindset. You have to work around that. He's barging. How do I stop him barging? Well, we find out why he's barging, and then we start to reward and give him what he wants, but for the right behaviors. And then we extend the duration, and we extend the timing, and we do the generalization. As I said, it's the science of behavior. You can apply it to anything, which is why it's so important to learn it and to figure it out. Does that give you some ideas, Tracy? Cool, good. Right, okay. Looks like you're all exhausted. It's late at night. You're all tired. That's cool. Yeah. Stopping the standing still. You're standing still. People don't teach animals to stand still enough as a way of solving problems, and it's crucial that they do. And being bored is another one. What are you doing? I'm just standing out here being bored. Teaching them to be bored is really important. Some good foundations. If there aren't any more questions or anything like that, it's been a pleasure talking at you from the other side of the world. There are lots of resources. There are lots of things to follow up on. Have a go. If you get into it and you've got some questions or you're not sure about something, then obviously just drop me an email or just, on Facebook or whatever, just to say, actually, I've tried this and now he's run off into the distance and I can't get him. What do I do? Then obviously all my advice goes with the guarantee that I'm there to back you up and do that. And yeah, look on the resources to try and find some more information to give you the skills that to add to what you've already got.
Just got one more quick question before you go. You know that 4-week course that you're running at the moment on how to improve the relationship with your donkey, horse, or mule?
Yep.
Is that something that you will offer relatively regularly? The reason I'm asking is we get a lot of people that contact our Facebook page and stuff that have like just got donkeys, and it's like, I know like the Donkey Sanctuary do a introduction to donkey ownership course and stuff. It's having somewhere to send them to learn the very basics to start.
Yeah, I think the two answers. One is, look at the Donkey Sanctuary webinars that I've done there, because I've talked about using the science of behavior. I've talked about dealing with feet, common donkey behavior problems, the nervous or traumatized donkey. So there's like 5 hours of resources there that people can check out for free, which is always good. The course that is how do you have a better relationship is based on what I said earlier, which is about how do you look at relationship first and who you are and what you want and build on. Which is, and has the live session, so there's a chance to do what we're doing now. Currently, I don't know. I created it as a result because of all the pandemic and people being stuck at home. I am thinking that I might turn it into a stationary course, so I will put the content that I have into a course on the Thinkific site there, so that people could go and do it at any time.
Yeah,
it takes
because because the thing that's nice about your site, because it's scientific based, is it can blend in with anybody's training methods. If somebody's using is wedded to a particular thing, they can still assess themselves using your shaping plans and stuff. So it's quite a nice place for people to start.
Yeah, I'm not
let us know if
I'm not trying. I don't everybody's on a journey, so I'm very much about just supporting people in developing their own path to whatever part of their relationships they want, really. So whatever you're using or whatever people choose to use, they can then come and enhance that with the knowledge that we can give them and everything. So it isn't about giving up something to do something else like a lot of trainers. It's about saying, okay, well, if I understand that, then I could apply that to what I'm doing and make it even better. So yeah, but the answer is, I think I probably will make a stationary version so that it's there that people could do at other times if they wanted to, and then I probably will run it again maybe once or twice later in the year as a live element where we can talk, because people can come on and ask questions and do those sorts of things. But there are 6 foundations. The six keys would be the course that actually I would probably recommend for new people. To be honest, Chase, thinking about it. And it's on those 2 versions. One has a shaping plan for trust, problem solving, and confidence in it, and one doesn't. And it's a live demonstration that I did, so there's lots of live stuff in there. But it just goes through those 6 steps that I talked about and gives some idea of that. And I think that's probably a slightly better foundation for somebody who is new to donkeys and mules, to look at the science and go, okay, let me apply those 6 things and get those right. Then everything else will get better after that.
Right. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, cool. I mean, I really don't like the kind of marketing thing. I'm very much let people go on. If you, I'm not pushing anything. So people go and have a look. If it resonates with you, great. Have a go at it. If it doesn't, that's absolutely fine too. But I think if you were recommending new people, it'd probably be those 6 keys to working with equine behaviour would be much more a good foundation.
Well, I know for me, I have a horse trainer, and having a bit of donkey relatable stuff to plug into her already horse knowledge is really quite helpful.
Yep, definitely. Beware
Thank
horse
you.
experts.
She said to me the other day, she goes, I thought I knew about equines and then I met your donkeys.
Pretty much it. I have to say, 20 years working with donkeys and mules made me much better at training horses. Definitely.
Thank you so much for making the time to talk to us. I really appreciate it.
Real pleasure. Yeah, thank you very much indeed, and thank you for organising it, and I look forward to hearing from you in the future. Look, I got a double thumbs up from Fiona. Cool, liking it. Oh, and from Fiona and Lucy. Oh, that's how we're doing it nowadays. Brilliant. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Take care. Good evening, and go well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
Bye.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.